All right, so we're working with our law of sines and law of cosines, and I just wanted to make sure that we see some examples of how to do it, and including also finding the area of the associated triangle. So let's look at an example that we worked on in class. So we've got um, 30 degrees here, 61 degrees here, and then 8 right in between them. You might not know how to start with this because you don't have the angle that's opposite of 8. So it's not really clear where to start. You can still get that angle though because you have two angles out of a triangle. Anytime you got two angles out of a triangle, you can figure out the third angle pretty quickly. So 180 minus 30 minus 61 ends up being 89 degrees. So that's that missing angle right there, 89 degrees. So now I can use the law of sines because I've got my angle and I've got my side length that's opposite to it. Then if I've got 61, I can call this side A. And if I've got 30 degrees, I can call this side C or B or X. It doesn't really matter what letter I give it. So I can do sine of 61 degrees over A. And then in a second, I'll go back and I'll try to find the C value. So here, I'm trying to find the letter A. So I'm going to multiply both sides by A because multiplying will get rid of the fraction right there. So I have A times, why don't I just type that into my calculator? Sine of 89. Make sure you close your parentheses. Make sure you do sine of 89 with parentheses on both sides. Make sure you're in degree mode. Sine of 89 divided by 8 tells me A times 0.125 equals sine of 61 degrees. And then I'm going to divide by 0.125 to get my A value. Sine 61, close my parentheses. Make sure you close your parentheses. Divided by 0.125 tells me that A is 6.997. If I rounded it up to the 10th, I get 7.0. So now I can use either A or I can keep using the 8 to find out the C value. I'll basically just do the same thing again. I'll just use a different color. Sine of 89 divided by 8 equals sine of 30 divided by C. We already know that we multiply to get rid of our fraction. We already know that the sine of 89 over 8 is 0.125. All we need to do is the sine of 30, which comes out to be a solid 0.5. Divide by 0.125. Divide by 0.125. And you get C equals 4. There you go. So that's an example of using the law of sines to find the missing side lengths and angles. What I'll do next is do an example where I have to use the law of cosines. So if you have a triangle looking like this, where you've got 28, 18, and 12, you don't have any angles, so you don't want to use law of sines to start. The law of sines is only useful when you've got at least one of your angles. You don't have angles here. So I'm going to use law of cosines. I'm just going to call this angle C. Doesn't really matter which one I call, angle C. The two sides that are surrounding angle C are A and B. The side that's opposite is C. And I'll just set up my law of cosines like this. So I've got 28 squared plus 18 squared minus 2 times 12. 2 times 18 times 28. Cosine of C equals 12 squared. Now keep in mind that this piece is separate from this piece. Do those separately. So 28 squared plus 18 squared makes 1108. 2 times 18 times 28 makes 1008. Cosine C, and 12 squared makes 144. Do not subtract these. Don't do it. That is the most common mistake. Don't do it. Do not do that. Imagine it just said 1108 minus 1008x. You wouldn't tell me that that's equal to 100x. you would get rid of this piece first. So we do not subtract those together because the 1008 is multiplied by cosine. So I go minus 1008 from both sides of the equation. That gets rid of that. So I have negative 1008 cosine C equals 144 minus 1108 equals negative 964. Then I divide just like I was solving for x. So I divide by negative 1008. So cosine of C equals 0.956. And then we do inverse cosine. So you get the second button, the cosine button, 0.956. So you get C is 17.06 degrees. Now that you've got an angle, you can use law of sines, which I think is typically a little easier than law of cosines. So just like I did on the previous example, now I can say sine of 17.06 over 12 equals sine of A over 28. So let's just type that in, sine of 17.06, close my parentheses over 12. So make sure I'm closing my parentheses there. So I have 0.0244 equals sine A. And then I do my inverse sine of that. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to do inverse sine yet. I still have this divided by 28. So I'm going to go 0.0244 times 28, because that's how you get rid of your fraction. So times 28, I got ahead of myself, times 28. So I have 0.6832 equals sine of A. Then I do my inverse sine, 0.6832, and I get 43.09 equals A. Now, do I need to use law of sines or law of cosines? Nope. I've got two angles. So once you got two angles, you just go 180 minus your two angles, 180 minus 17.06 minus 43.09. Let's see what we got. Tells you my last angle here will be 119. Okay. So there you have it. Please let me know if you think that there were any mistakes here made, and I'll help you out. There we go.